Moab and the off-road trails outside of Moab are in the news again. Except this time, it's actually a good thing. And maybe you've heard or you've seen some information that the BLM is now considering opening nearly half of the 317 miles of roads and trails or routes that were closed in 2023. And you might be thinking, well, how did this happen? I mean, they were only closed like 2 years ago, so why are they considering opening them now? And then what can I do? Like, what can you at home do to help us try and get these routes open? That's what I'm going to show you in this video. You can skip ahead if you want. I've got this outlaid in chapters, so if you go down to the copy of the video, you can just go to the chapter section that you'd like to look at, because I'm going to do a little bit of background first, just the Cliff Notes version, because I have two rather extensive videos that I produced during the actual travel management process that closed the 317 routes back in 2022, leading into 2023. So you can go back and reference that if you would like to. Or in this video, you can skip ahead to the part where we're going to ask you to comment and what you need to do so that you can help us get these routes reopened. So back to 2023 for a second, when 317 miles of roads and trails were closed just outside of Moab in the Labyrinth Rims Gemini Bridges travel management decision, which is trails that's a little bit north and west of Moab. So all the way up to the Green River and almost to I-70, and then down and out to Metal Masher, Arth's Rim, Gemini Bridges Road. So in 2017, a settlement agreement was reached between environmental groups and the BLM. They had sued the BLM to redo several travel management plans in Utah. And Gemini Bridges and Labyrinth Rims was one of those plans that they sued to have redone. Now, the key part about this is there was a gal who was working for the Wilderness Society at this time. Her name was Nada Wolf Culliver. More on her in a minute, but she was one of the attorneys that achieved this settlement agreement, explicitly working for the Wilderness Society. SUA, Southern Utah Wilderness Alliance, and other groups were all part of this, that they wanted travel management redone. And then when they got that settlement to mandate the BLM redo that travel management in 2017, that's the process I was referring to that was then decided on in 2023. But fast forward to 2023, when that decision came down, and then even the year preceding that in 2022 and some of the prior years. And it was interesting, the previous presidential administration that was in place. And the reason is that Nada Wolf Culliver, who achieved that settlement agreement as an attorney for the Wilderness Society in 2017, was then the deputy director of BLM in the Biden administration. So Tracy Stone Manning was appointed the director of the BLM, and then deputy director of the BLM was Nada Wolf Culliver. And then magically this decision comes down during that administration that chopped off 317 miles of route that they always wanted closed, that SUA wanted closed, that the Wilderness Society wanted closed when they achieved the settlement agreement. And then it just so happened that their political friends were in power and helped to make this happen so that we, the public, lost 317 miles of access to roads and trails. And if you want to go back and look at this information, I've got this document in the previous two videos that I spoke about. We went in-depth analysis of how this was a political hatchet job that closed 317 miles of roads and trails. Absolutely not warranted. And this final decision was not decided at the local BLM field office, the Moab field office. This decision came down from Washington, and the people in power in Washington told the local field office, this is what you're going to do. And then we're going to write up some justification as why we're doing this, but the decision is already made. We are closing these 317 miles of roads and trails. So fast forward to now, there's obviously a different administration in power, one which is much more friendly to public land users and access, and has made that a focal point. So after the 2023 decision came down, several groups challenged that decision in a number of different ways. And this is important to understand kind of what led us to this point where the reevaluation of at least half of the route mileage is being considered to reopen by the BLM. So initially, after that 2023 decision, there were 4 groups that challenged that decision in the appeal process through the Interior Board of Land Appeals, which is the IBLA. And that is in the Department of the Interior and handles appeals if you are appealing a BLM decision. You would like it looked at by the Interior Board of Land Appeals to see if they made the correct decision or potentially if there were flaws in that decision. Those 4 groups. So one of them was Ride with Respect, TPA, COVCO, and then us at CORE filed a joint appeal together. Ride with Respect is the local organization based out of Moab, but it's in Utah in general. Then there was a second appeal filed by Off-Road Business Association, ORBA, on behalf of all of their members, because a lot of their members in the organizations that they represented commented during that travel plan leading up to the decision. So those were 2 of them. Then we had Blue Ribbon Coalition filed an appeal, and then actually the state of Utah filed an appeal as well. 2 of those appeals are currently still active with the IBLA. That is the Ride with Respect, TPA, COVCO, and our appeal. And then the ORBA appeal, those 2 appeals are still valid at the IBLA right now. 2 organizations pulled their appeal and then filed a complaint in federal district court. That was BRC and the state of Utah. So they filed a complaint against the BLM to challenge that decision in federal court. They requested an injunction initially, which would have prevented the BLM from implementing their decision until that court case was fully heard and decided upon. The court rejected that, so the BLM implemented their travel plan. So as of right now, those 317 miles of roads and trails are officially closed. Even if they're not signed or there's not a barrier on the ground, they are closed. But BRC and the state of Utah still has their ongoing federal complaint. What's going on now is not part of any type of decision or settlement agreement with the litigation that's in federal court or the appeal that's in front of the 2 appeals that are in front of the IBLA. Those are all still active. This is the BLM on their own deciding that they need to go back and reevaluate nearly 150 miles of this prior decision. And there's a couple of reasons for that, and really recent reasons that have happened since the 2023 decision. Now, I told you it was a railroaded political decision, and you can go back and look at all the information and come to your own conclusion. But what's happened since then is in 2024, the Bipartisan Explore Act passed Congress and was signed into law. Now, the Explore Act is a piece of legislation that requires the creation or maintenance of recreational opportunities for people with disabilities, number 1, and it also requires quantifying and economic impacts of recreation. It encourages both the U.S. Forest Service and the BLM to create more, I want to emphasize that, more opportunities for motorized and non-motorized vehicles on federal land. So essentially the 2024 Explore Act is totally opposite of the 2023 BLM travel decision. And then April 1st of 2025, ORBA sent a letter to the new Secretary of the Interior, which right now under the present administration is Doug Burgum. ORBA had a good relationship with Burgum in the past before he was actually appointed as Secretary of the Interior. And they sent a letter directly to him asking for assistance with federal land management in Utah and the issues that we were having with the BLM. And you can read this letter in the copy of this video. I'm going to put a whole bunch of resources in there so that you can go down through there and read through some of the information that I'm presenting. And then you can also access, this letter and other pieces of documentation. And then we move up to July 3rd of this year, July 3rd, 2025. President Trump signs the Make America Beautiful Again executive order. And that executive order specifically looked to take public land access another step further by directly stating that land use restrictions have stripped hunters, fishers, hikers, outdoorsmen of access to public lands that belongs to them. And then it goes on to say, developing policies to expand access to public lands, national parks, national forests, and wildlife refuges while promoting a wide range of outdoor recreation opportunities like hunting, fishing, hiking, biking, skiing, climbing, boating, off-roading, and wildlife viewing. Now, to my knowledge, that is the first time an executive order has ever specifically mentioned off-roading in terms of recreation, one, and that two, federal land managers are to increase access to that activity as a result. So now it's no shock that the environment is absolutely 180 degree different from the environment when this decision was rendered in 2023. So what can you do? We've got this incredible opportunity where the BLM has been directed to reevaluate at least half the routes in this area to reopen. And most all of them that they are looking at reevaluating are routes that we, the public, want to use, routes that we commented on. Hey, don't close these because these are extremely important to the off-road community. So BLM's got a really cool ARC GIS site up that I'll have a link to in the copy of this video that you can pull up so you can see routes that are proposed just to reopen, zero restrictions. These were closed and we just need to reopen them because they're important. There's a number of routes like those on there. There are some routes then that also have a seasonal designation for a period of time for bighorn sheep habitat. But then outside of that closure date, they would be allowed for public use. So let me show you a first-person view of that ARC GIS site, and we'll go through a couple of these routes because they're listed in terms of the inventoried route number, not necessarily the common term that we all use when we say we're going to go run this trail. But I'll show you what they are. So here is the Department of the Interior map for the BLM showing the area. This pink one is Hajo Canyon. This is Hell Roaring Canyon. Up here, this one is 10 Mile Canyon. Then down here is Day Canyon Point. And then Dead Cow Loop, some of the single track stuff is up in that area. We zoom in maybe a little bit more here. That's a lot. But D2562, this is mashed potatoes. So all of these, if you look around on the map here, you can see them scrolling around. The green ones are the ones that are being reevaluated for just going from closed to open. The pink ones would then have a seasonal closure designation on them. The purplish stuff is not full-size routes, so that's under 50 inches or single track. And then the ones that are like in this orangish color are designated to stay closed, unless they get enough comments on some of these that would reopen them. Like 10 Mile Canyon, I would say, is one of the biggest ones. But a lot of these, I mean, they're not that important. I mean, some of these are just like crisscrossing off of intersections that are not that big of a deal. The main ones that we are interested in are the greens, the pinks, the single track stuff, and then a couple other ones we will discuss, like 10 Mile Canyon, that should be considered for reopening. And then comments are open until the 24th of October. So you saw the routes. You can go back and look at that site on your own if you want to. Comments for this plan are open until the 24th of October. And I've been told that this is going to be the only public comment period leading up to this decision. So this is your only opportunity to comment on these routes that we want to have reopened. And maybe not even just the ones they're considering reopened. They're taking information and feedback and comments on all the routes that they close. So there's a couple other important ones that aren't directly listed as being considered for reevaluation into open, but that we would really like open. So we're going to request that you comment on those as well. And there's a very easy way to comment. So the way that the BLM is handling this and the way that we are asking you to comment is pretty simple because we're usually always on the other side. They're considering closing things and we're trying to formulate arguments as to why they shouldn't be closed and what they've overlooked. Now we're actually on the opposite side. They're considering open something. So we just need to provide them feedback of why they should. So it's really simple. You tell them who you are and where you're from. Have you visited Moab, or are you planning on visiting Moab? Have you visited these specific trails that they're considering, or are you planning on visiting these specific trails? And then you tell them which trails and why. Why do you love Hey Joe Canyon? Why should that be reopened? It doesn't have to be anything super technical. You could say it's an unbelievable experience driving in the bottom of Labyrinth Canyon next to the river and looking up at the sheer cliffs as you travel through there. Like, those are the most important pieces, and that you actively use this. How many times have you used it in the past? Do you want to use it again in the future? Or maybe you've never been there, but if they reopen this, then you would like to go visit that at some point in the future. Those are the important pieces. And I usually don't advocate for this, but in this case, it seems reasonable. Patrick has created somewhat of a form letter. Now, usually we don't advocate form letters, because if you just copy and paste the exact same information and send it to the BLM, they don't count those as unique comments. If 10 of those exact same letters come in, they don't count them as 10 individual letters, they count them as one. So even though 10 people did the same thing, they only consider that as one comment. Now that helps, but it doesn't help as well as it could be. What if all 10 of those people commented about the trails that we wanted to have reopened, but then they also made it unique to their own personal experience and desire? That's what Patrick's done. So if you go to the link in the copy of this to the Google form, the trails are all listed out in not only common name, but also the BLM number. And then you can add your personal experience to the top of that letter, telling the BLM why you're recommending these trails open. And then the list of trails is all put together, so you don't have to look up the road number and the common name. And there's just some simple bullet points of why it would be advantageous to have these open. So you can click on that. But again, make sure that if you use that list, you insert some of your own personal information at the top. So you go through, you tell the BLM who you are, how many times you visit Moab, why you visit Moab, why you love these areas and they should reopen them. And that's really all you need to do. It's very simple. If you have pictures of any of these places, that would be amazing to include those in your comment. Like Day Canyon Point is one of my favorite areas. My family's been going out there for a number of years before it was closed, and the overlook at the end over the Colorado River is amazing. And while it's not, a hugely popular trail in terms of name, Hell's Revenge or Pritchett Canyon or Metal Masher or any of the other really big ones, it's an awesome off the beaten path trip. You get some slick rock, you have some cool views, and you go to a really neat overlook. So I'm going to use some of these pictures when I comment on my own about why I want to go there. 10 Mile Canyon's one that is not on the reconsideration list, but it was closed in the previous decision. And that's a place that I've never been. And some of these pictures that I'm going to show you from there look amazing. And they were taken in the fall when Patrick documented that route before the closure, specifically to show how cool this route was. So I'm going to include some of these pictures in my comment because I want that road reopened, because I want to go there someday. I want to go there in the fall and see these trees changing in the bottom of this cool canyon with the cliff walls and the ability to drive down the canyon towards the Green River. I think that would be an unbelievable experience, and that place should be reopened. And you should do that. I've run mashed potatoes one time in the past, and I would like to do it again. So I'm going to tell the BLM how important that trail is to me. The 7-Up Trail, some of the other overlooks that were closed that are really, really cool. I mean, you drive out into these desert landscapes, and it's really neat to go to a defined endpoint, which an overlook, it does two things. It's a destination by itself, because that's where people want to go because it's awesome, and it's a defined endpoint of the trail. That just makes common sense of why the public should be able to access those points. So we've made it super easy. So you've got all the information you need from this video, and then we've got the link to Patrick's generated outline for a comment to the BLM, and then we'll have a link directly to the comment portal. So we need your help between now and October 24th. This is our one opportunity to tell the BLM how important this area was and that we want all of these routes, plus a couple other ones that are important to us, reopened so that we can go out and enjoy those areas again. So please do that for us. Take a couple minutes of your time, jot some thoughts down, submit the comment. We always say help us keep trails open, and in this case, it is a rare opportunity that you can help us reopen some trails.